Hello friends, this is going to be a video about how to make a good farm account for Cat and Dog World. For one thing, this game is much better than other games like it as far as giving you resources. The resource nodes feel a lot more plentiful because there's a lot less players, I believe, on each server than are normally in these games, so the competition for resources isn't quite as great. However, with that being said, especially if you're somebody who buys packs of speed ups, you are going to go through your resources much faster, so it is useful to have a farm. And when you hit level 30, when you first hit level 30, you spend a ton of resources upgrading all your troops from 9 to 10, and those last couple of levels of the buildings are very, very pricey. So it's very helpful to have a farm at that point. So here are some tips and tricks for making a good farm. For one thing, buildings to level up. Just like with any other account that I would be leveling, I focus on leveling up my fountain. The higher your fountain, the higher your troops, the higher your building collection rates, all of that kind of stuff. You always want to have a high level fountain. So when I'm working on leveling up my fountain as quickly as possible, I always go in after the fountain levels up and I see what I need next. So in this case, I need the research base. Obviously, you need the embassy. You always level up the embassy with it. So the next building that I'm going to level up should be my research building. As far as research goes, the other thing is you're going to want to stick to this middle lane. So level up everything in this middle lane. So that's going to be your research, your construction, and your 2 March queues. You can get 2 March queues. One's there, I forget what level that is, and then this one is at level 18. You get the second one. So I would definitely try to push for a level 18 farm. After 18... if you get to 19, you unlock a new tier of troops, so that is pretty nice. So 18, 19 is a pretty nice level to shoot for as far as like a minimum for a farm. My other things like the training and the healing was leveled up mostly because it was server versus server week and I was just trying to use my speed ups on anything I could get points on for my server because I knew we were going to lose and we really needed all the points we could get. We still lost though. Okay, and then the other thing I leveled up specifically on these accounts, I was actually more concerned about collection than gathering because I can't send my people out to gather necessarily because we have somebody who will attack resource nodes for people that aren't in nap 10 because he's a troll. But most farmers, the big thing you want to work on is this gathering. Get your gathering skill up, send your gatherers out. That's the biggest way you're going to collect resources as a farm. So that's very important. And then as far as the third category, combat, is concerned, like I said, I put some points in here because of server versus server, but what I would do is put 1 in each category so that I could unlock things like March formation, this pack formation. That's going to be very useful once you get into higher resource levels, higher resource nodes, to have a higher March capacity. So again, you just put 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1 across the board. You get to a new pack formation. Go ahead and level that up as much as you can. Again, 1s across the board till you get to your next pack formation and level that up. I will not worry about necessarily any of the other combat research. And again, it just kind of depends on what your goal is. You might not even need that pack formation that much, but it doesn't take too much just to put in like the bare bones, especially for the first couple levels, to get these first 2 or 3 pack formations unlocked. You're generally not going to have your farm account in the same alliance as your main because you want to be able to hit it easily. So sometimes your main alliance might have an academy or a farm alliance, or you just have it in an alliance that is not associated with your alliance at all. And then just let people know, especially if your farm is in a NAP protected alliance, that it's you hitting your account and everything's fine and not to worry. Because we have had serious drama break out on servers before because somebody hit their own farm and they were like, it was protected by NAP. Yes, but it's my farm. But you're not allowed to hit something in NAP. But it's my farm. It's just ridiculous, but it happens. If you are not planning on doing dailies enough to unlock these last two categories, it's not necessarily super useful to do dailies. The biggest reason to do dailies is to kind of unlock those stellar crystals in case your farm ever eventually gets that high. The rest of the stuff, there's just really not a whole lot there that's useful. It's very kind of like very minimal stuff. So the other thing is, along the lines of trying to collect resources and gather resources, you want to make sure you have troops. So I do level up my troop buildings. Level 19 is when you unlock a new troop. I think this one was level 16 or 13. And higher troops are very helpful. Then, just like I would with any other account, I absolutely do not spend any kind of speed ups or consumable items, nursery things, anything that you can get points for in a server versus server or King of the Wilderness, Strongest Chief, inscription things, hero shards. Save all of that so that in the off chance that you do eventually want to make this a good account, you could just have a really, really amazing high point Strongest Chief one time and just use all of the items that you have. So, in summary, when you're a farm, think about what buildings you do want to level up. Always try to level your fountain. I do try to level up my collection buildings, and do not level up your storeroom. In your research base, you do want to focus on the development tab as far as your research, construction, and march queues. Then obviously training is always useful. Healing should not necessarily be needed. Obviously if you partake in apostles or things like that, that's a different story. And then in the combat tree, really the only thing that you need is the march capacity. So up to you if you want to put any points in the combat tree, or maybe just put enough points to get to the first two march capacity sections to at least do those. I think that'll really help because it doesn't take a lot of resources to do these first couple of levels. One thing I absolutely will do on accounts that are farms but not on your main account is when you go in here and you're paying resources to level this up, at a certain point you can start paying metal. Okay? On your main account, you should not do this until you get to a place where you have a lot of extra metal. So at a certain point, I did hit that. On these accounts, I'm pretty low on metal because of the server versus server and using the metal for research and spending my research speed ups. But I would normally spend my metal in something like this so that I don't need to spend as much resources. It would use the metal instead of resources. Because on a farm account, if you're not worrying about your combat research, you can keep up with your other two categories of development and the economy research pretty well, even without saving that extra metal. The other thing is you're going to go to the store and the corner store, and I will buy things. I will buy resources with gems. So for food, water, and wood, which are things that I always need the most of, I will buy them at whatever level of discount they are, just because it'll unlock the next thing, and the next thing might be more useful. I don't necessarily buy all of the plastic unless it's like 50 gems or less. Some of the stacks of resources are like 1,000 gems, and that is quite a bit. So even if it is 25% off, I won't necessarily spend 1,000 gems, especially if it's plastic. If you buy everything here with resources to try to unlock as many things as possible to buy and buy extra resources with gems, you do end up being very plastic heavy. So that is why I don't end up needing as much plastic. So the other thing is in the VIP store, every time it refreshes, you're always going to want to make sure you buy your resources. Again, I don't need the plastic because I buy the resources and exchange them in the market that I just showed you, so I end up with a lot of extra plastic, but I absolutely buy the food, the water, and the wood every time on my farms with the gems. That is the best thing you should spend your gems on as a farm. And the nice thing is it doesn't require a very high VIP level, so you don't necessarily want to buy VIP on your farms. On your farm, you're not going to have that first piggy bank because you should not spend any money in your farm, so you do want to take advantage of the other piggy banks. Those are all free. They'll just, slowly get you a little bit more gems over time. I do participate in events like this. It's pretty easy to do these things, and it gets your resources and things that are useful. I may or may not do things like spending speed ups. I did during the server versus server because I was getting points for that. But I mean, the soldiers and the predators and things like that are very easy to do because I was already doing them anyway. So something to keep in mind. Then in here, when I buy stuff, obviously, if you're a good farm and a hardcore farm, you could just go straight resources. Even on my farms, I just can't do that. I had to buy the stellar crystals, even if they might never get to stellar level. You should always buy stellar crystals just because you need tons of them. And then the next, very most important thing. Before you attack your farm, you need to make sure your troops are out. So one thing, if you click on this top thing up here where your resources are, it will show you if you have any unsecured resources. So again, that goes back to trying to make sure your storehouse is low level and you don't have your VIP activated to cover and save more of your resources. You want to have as many resources able to be plundered as possible. This is not enough to even be worth hitting, so I would not hit my account. I just hit it earlier. But if I was going to attack my account, I would make sure I garrison all of my troops out. So you click on flags, you click on the headquarter, you say march. So garrison, march, click on the flag, garrison, and then I have no troops. If you want to be extra careful, you can go in here, you can click on troop, you can click on shelter, again, no troops. So I have accidentally attacked myself. See? This is why we chat. So this exact situation happened to me earlier. I sent troops to the headquarters. The headquarters were full, so it sent back the troops that did not fit. And I thought that I had sent all my troops out. I sent myself to attack my farm, and I hit those troops that did not fit in the headquarters. So again, just be super careful. Make sure when you send your troops out that they are completely out. Double check the shelter. Make sure the shelter says no troops, and you're good to go before you start attacking. If you can safely gather on your server, then you can send your troops out to resource nodes instead of to flags or to headquarters. The thing to keep in mind about that is that if you click on like a level 5 resource node, for example, and you only send what it would normally want you to send, so enough to cover the resources, then you're not going to end up sending all of your troops out, and you will still have troops in your base. So you can send to that level 5 node and then just make sure you send more troops. So you want to send closer to a full march. So like I sent out 3 marches. This is my 4th march. So that is going to be everything. And then again, same double check. Go in here, click troops, click shelter, and make sure no soldiers are available. And now you're ready to attack. If you do want to do arenas on a farm, this is how I set my team up. So if you notice, I have nothing on my list that is even remotely close to something that I can attack. So I will pick the highest strength one or whatever. And I have my one little guy in so that I will lose as quickly as possible so that I can get my 5 done and get my... See, this one I actually could have beat if I put a full team in, but I don't care. I got my resources for doing that. I got my little gear thingy. I got my missions done for the daily, and that's all that matters. Oh, one other thing, before you attack yourself, I will go in here and I will spend resources. So today I really needed resources. I spent every single resource I had other than plastic before I hit myself, because we had server versus server. I had like 10 days of healing. It was a really rough battle. I had also just hit 30 and recently increased all of my troops from 9 to 10. So I spent every resources I had doing that. Anyway, good luck and happy farming, everybody.